the months of delay. I apologize. A bunch of shit's been going on, and stuff like that. Finally, I'm able to just do this uninterrupted. It took me much to get this shit back to going. Sorry, I was not a breakdown, I promise. I wish I had fucking Everclear and fucking weed to drink and puff at the same time to get fucked up on, see if I can film this shit. Speaking of ethanol, here we are on How to Clean the Earth. Market Style Now, Episode 1, Part 2. Ethanol Potential Problems, Critiques, and Solutions. Here we go. Without further ado. Ethanol is hygroscopic. To the point, you could do a fun little wordplay to be a smartass, say hydrophilic. Hydrophilic. I meant to say hydrophilic. I've heard it pronounced both ways. But yes, this is a potential problem for engines, but that's way easier to fix than you are usually probably told on fucking average. You need to use a choice of either gum out, ethanol sheet protections, corrosion inhibitor additive, as they would call it on their fucking site. Which really is just corrosion inhibition for gasoline and certain other aspects in gasoline. And just, again, inhibits water from getting down. It's just added more of those kind of additives. That's all it really is. It doesn't actually stop ethanol from corroding. Ethanol's not even fucking corrosive, you ass monkeys. If you look up chemical data compatibility data sheets, you'll see that. And that pissed me off when Engineer Explained said it's corrosive falsely, because when he did the video on ethanol fueling and engine wear, you got either the exact same or in some aspects slightly less engine wear. I would argue less, even more than slightly lessening, because of the carbon cleaning and removing aspect of it and whatnot, because that contributes to wear reduction too. So that means still a net lessening of fucking engine wear. Doubly confirming David Bloom's claims about ethanol cleaning out carbon and extending fucking engine life. Alright, had to finish with a little reply. Anyway, so you either need, again, you need to, use, ethanol shield. I use it, whether it's in a non-ethanol gas or not, because its conditioning capabilities are very nice for, whatever, for the worst elements of gas, protecting the, seals and gaskets and lines and hosing material very nicely. And you can use it, or you can use Stable, STA-BIL, with my ethanol protections, or the gum out with my ethanol inhibition, corrosion inhibitor. Those three I would recommend personally, because they do inhibit corrosion of the worst elements of gas. They enhance ethanol's ability to stabilize the fuel itself. And if you actually listen to episode 1, part 1, fact checks and myth busting of about ethanol fueling, you'll understand, especially points 1, 13, and 14 that address it pretty fucking well. So, the chemistry of gasoline is not so great. But the issue is, water is the main reason ethanol can cause trouble. Water. Block it out. And if you let your vehicle sit for a long period of time, put either of those 3 fuel stabilizers in it, whether you're using conventional or non-ethanol gas. Use them any fucking way, because it works damn well. And fill that son of a bitch up so these additives can disperse in it, and let the engine run. Put a little extra and then put some gas in there to help to protect, or if using ethanol blended, help ethanol protect the hosing, gaskets, and fuel lines and seals, and the materials are made of, from the actual shitty things in gasoline. Here's a fair warning though: do not listen to any fuel additives claims about reducing heat due to ethanol blended fuels. That is a damn fraudulent claim to say, and it's a fucking lie. That disappointed me in B3C Fuel Solutions when they make this cool combustion technology claim on their on one of their web pages. The whole page dedicated to it. That didn't. And when it was on the ethanol shield labeling originally, that pissed me off because it's fraud. That's a fraudulent claim. It is because it's a damn lie. But not only that, it's been disproven in the references below in part 1, and we'll be here in part 2 as well. For emphasis, the only way that hot burning happens is if you run alcohol mixed gases, especially if it's higher than 40% ethanol, or going up to E55, E60. You start going to that percentage of blending range, and you run it on default, or higher, and it runs too fucking lean. Okay, if higher alcohol blended fuels or alcohols run too lean, that's when burning hot actually happens. I nuke the fuck out of that if you actually use the right adjustments. To do higher blended fuels than E40, you need to have a computer, but you can buy an aftermarket ethanol flex fuel making computer. Buy it, bolted it, get a mechanic to bolt that son of a bitch into your cars or trucks. Main computer, the actual computer, an ECU, computerized ECU, bolt it in. Okay? And put it in the proper grounds, and after it's plugged in, and then boot that sumbitch up to actually make it sync up and work. Then you can use anything higher than E40 with no problems, because it will control the injection timing and such for the right mixture ratios that beyond that. Okay? Because that will get rid of that running hot, because it's run too lean problem. I'm going to go further into some of this into point 2. Number 2. Ethanol contains about 30 to 33 and a third, percent less energy per unit volume than gasoline. Or actually stored chemical potential able to turn into BTUs, 30 to 33 and a third percent less of that per unit volume than gasoline, to be exact, be as technical as possible. Because energy it's chemical potential able to be turned into energy based on heat release, BTUs. As a result, even a well-tuned performance car that's flex fuel, running on E85, which is just 15% gasoline added to dewatered moonshine for better cold starts, or pure moonshine that's dewatered by itself, even running on them too, if well-performed, well-tuned performance flex fuel car running on either of those two choices, you could get 20 to 35% less mileage per gallon, which in itself varies a lot as well. What's insane though, according to some 2007 dyno tests and Glacial Lake Energy offering a challenge for everybody to choose that wants to go, and been around in 2016 to go take their trucks and their cars and their vans or whatever they mainly drive to their pump stations to get dedicated E30 gasoline pump at their pumps and trial it out. Anywhere from E25 to E40. And what'll happen, guess what? They either got slightly less mileage per gallon, slightly more miles per gallon, or did not change at all, but they got a shit ton more power and their engines ran nicer, ran better, and their power and performance jumped up. And they filed the reports in on this too, just running those fuels, and they all to further what the 2007 dynamometer studies said on just those few models: the Chevy Impala, the Toyota Camry, the Ford Fusion or Ford something other, and then I forgot there was another, and they did the regular and then the flex fuel version. The flex fuel versions of one or two of those cars did best on E25, which was a very low ethanol blend when it comes to emissions and mileage versus power and ratios. So, yeah, it was the non-flex fuels, gasoline dedicated that did the best on the higher blends. Different years and model lines and makes vary differently. That's why each one, to get the actual accurate numbers, you're going to have to get your non-ethanol gas and then blend it with E85 to make those exact ratios, and then test them on the dyno to see the actual accurate, measures, and then do exhaust screenings to do certain adjustments too to get the least amount of exhaust as possible. That is also another thing. That's another thing to go into entirely. Excuse me, but yes, that's what you could do. That's what you could do to see what's the best alcohol to gasoline blend ratio for your make of your car. That's what it'll take an exact dyno testing to see. Test on E25, E30, E35, and E40 to see which one of those it will do best on. Something about the combustion and the ratio, something about those ratios of ethanol to gas, how it burns, just works really well. I'll link that. I'll link those at the top, and the soak test as well at the very top to prove my case about what I said about point 1. Number 3. Ethanol is a mixed bag on evaporating gasoline. Ethanol slows down the evaporation of most things in gas, but it raises the evaporation rate in other components in gas. Remember, gasoline's got a crapper ton of stuff in it. A lot of stuff. Ethanol isn't oxygenate. Guess what that means? It provides oxygen for fuels to help them burn off better. So it can have a possibility of making gasoline oxidize more or sooner. But that's a possibility. We need an actual oxidative stability study or a series of them to meta-analyze across the board and counter tests as well, them against other counter testing methods to meta-analyze with a second time at the very least to prove or debunk this. That's a possibility that needs to be tested staunchly. Now this is an interesting one because while ethanol is a solvent, there are heavy fractions in gasoline that could leave behind a white varnish or a varnish on its own, because it'll happen regardless if there's ethanol in it when you have gasoline that's not stabilized sitting in a carbureted engine for a long period of time. That's going to happen no matter fucking what, right? That's going to be a pain in the ass to deal with, but that will happen. While that is true, this is interesting. A dude I know online, I adore the guy to pieces, love the hell out of the guy, is a great person and as a friend, in the most platonic of fashion, where we both keep our trousers on and no one's anuses gets cream pied. And that's how much I'm emphasizing the no homo. Because I don't swing that way. I'm not, the closest I got, I saw somebody's nasty, some hugely fat chick's nude that was absolutely piece of shit towards me and some others. Her nudes got leaked. I was sent them without my desire to see it, and I went asexual for a good while. I said 5 minutes, but I'm really shortcutting it. Maybe an hour. That's as close to gay as I want to get. Now that I mention that backstory, I might as well say this definitely ain't for fucking children to see. Ugh. That shit haunts me. What's it getting in my brain? Enough of my few moments of past mental trauma. We had a little bit of a lengthy back and forth in DMs, and the guy's also done mechanic work on this, so we had a little bit of a back and forth in the DMs, a little bit of one, with some length to it. I showed him the references to the chemical compatibility sheets of the various gasket, rubber, and hoses and fuel line and seal material versus ethanol, as well as gasoline. A couple of safety data sheets on gasoline formulas, safety data sheets. And then we talked about his saying ethanol will cause varnishing on its own, which I admit it may be a possibility, but we don't have the proof because we have not done oxidative stability tests. But it could happen due to possibly being an oxidizing catalyst. But again, there's no hard testing to confirm this. Just a bunch of anecdotes and enough complaints to warrant the said testing. We didn't get much further than where we started off after the back and forth exchange was over, but we agreed to advocating to get rid of subsidies across the board. My approach would be a bit different than his, because he said, you're seeing me talk in this video, Myth Busted in fucking episode 1, part 1. I also differ from him when he said to abolish ethanol and gasoline. I said I had a short bit to say, where he unwittingly conceded to me only partially. I said, after seeing the chemical compatibility sheets, minimally biased soak tests on video and, online, as well as, safety data sheet, all this other stuff I linked you, and these tests on these dyno tests and these people getting these trials, I'd say get rid of the fucking MTBE, ETBE, at least get mostly cut back on the xylenes, toluene, benzenes, and ethylbenzenes, and get rid of a lot of the heavy hydrocarbons. At least crack them down. I'd get rid of that shit, or at least reduce them more than the ethanol. But let people choose to ethanol blend their own shit, or choose to have ethanol blended fuel if they want. Don't mandate one or the other. And he replied, a lot of those are anti-carbon build detergents, lubricants for the ejectors and pumps, and ignition modifiers. Which basically conceded on his end to fact checks 13 and 14 in part 1, as well as a couple others I'm just not going to mention, but mainly these particular two. I proved my point about heavier fractions of gasoline in the first place with that. I did not even know ignition modifiers were in gasoline until he said that. Do you know what that fucking means? That means you have to add something to make what you were trying to use as a fuel to make it actually bust off. If you need something to help it ignite for a thing or device that was built to use this substance you're putting ignition enhancement to as a fuel, unless it's ethanol with a little biodiesel for lube and an emulsion additive and an ignition improver to make it have high cetane instead of octane because they're polar opposites. But when a diesel or gasoline engines, you want high of both. Unless you're doing that to make an ethanol running capable engine like they do over in Sweden through the Scania company, Sakab and whatnot. That sounds fucking foodborne fucking nuts to me. That means the substance, your default substance. This is their default. This is not some designing of an engine with tweaks to the fuel chemistry to make it run on purpose. This is talking about the default fuel of a type of engine they're using. It means that default's got fucking problems. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking me?
Are you trying to have sex with me?
Sorry. I almost lost it, didn't I? Well, I should tell you how much of a problem that fucking is. Let's move on, shall we? Last issue. Ethanol production is shit. It is crappy. It is poor efficiency. Fixing that would be part of the solution. I mentioned some of this stuff in my videos about conventional farming. Please check them out. Stay tuned for part 3. I will give you the solutions and how it's made based on some statistics and some ideas I'll throw out there with factual evidence on experimental results for the 5th of the final problems of ethanol part 2, as well as show how to make it work on a full country size type, scale. And I will see you then. I hope you have a great Christmas and a happy Hanukkah. Leslie, that's so hard. Watch the Shapiro tard screech.